So Yu-Gi-Oh started out about 20 years ago, and back then the game played very differently to what it does today. But over 20 years, the game has changed quite a bit. Nowadays, as a new player, getting into the game can be kind of difficult. You start off building a deck, you get there, and you realize you actually have no idea what's going on. So in this series, we'll be taking you through how the game actually works, how to build your first deck, and what all the different card interactions are. Hopefully, by the time we're through with this series, you'll go from amateur duelist all the way to your very own King of Games. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! For Beginners. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! For Beginners, where we are starting episode 2, and episode 2 deals with what exactly do you need to play Yu-Gi-Oh! In episode 1, we went over what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, how the game works, and how you win a match and play a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So today we're going through exactly what it is you need to play. And to be honest, you only really need one thing, and that is a deck. To be honest, this is not a deck, this is a deck box, but inside it is a deck. So, that's really all you need to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Is you need a deck. And this is what makes card games like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering different from other strategy games such as chess or poker. Because whereas in chess, you and your opponent have the exact same pieces, poker, you're all playing from the same decks, so you have a reasonable chance of being able to guess what's being played. In Yu-Gi-Oh! Particularly, there are thousands of different cards, and you can be playing any of them. That's why building your deck is so important. Now, there are 3 types of cards that you can use when you build your deck, right? Those are monster cards, spell cards, and trap cards. Those are the only 3 types of cards that you will have in your deck. And I know that sounds simple, but there are hundreds of different monsters, spells, and traps. All of them have different effects, different stats, different, archetypes that they work with. So there are a lot of differences, right? There are different types of all these cards. But essentially, you only need 3 types of cards: monsters, spells, and traps. And that's what your deck will be built with. Now, your deck is between 40 and 60 cards. And honestly, 40 cards is usually the optimal number so that you can make sure that you draw the right cards. You don't want to be sitting with a 60 card deck where half of your deck is actually cards that you can't use or that are not useful for you. So making sure that you keep your deck as streamlined as possible is actually really important. Besides your deck, right, which is the only essential thing you actually need to play Yu-Gi-Oh!, there are 2 other types of deck that you have with you as well that will help you play better and win the game. These are your side deck and your extra deck. Now, your side deck is a separate set of cards to your main deck being your 40 to 60 card deck. But remember in the first episode, which if you haven't watched it yet, I recommend you check it out now. Remember I spoke about the importance of the match format, where you actually play 3 games to determine a winner. And the winner is the one that wins the best 2 out of 3. Now, between those games, if you've won or lost game 1, you have a chance to swap out cards from your main deck to your side deck and vice versa. Now, the side deck can be up to 15 cards. So even if they don't fit in with your main strategy, your side deck is like your contingency plan, right? If your main deck is your main win condition, your side deck is your contingency plan to cover for your weaknesses and for anything that you may not have expected. Now, you can only have up to 3 copies of each card in your deck and side deck combined, right? If you have 3 copies of the card in your main deck, you can't have any copies of it in your side deck because that would go over the limit. And remember, like I said, there is also a forbidden and limited list, which gets updated on a 3 monthly basis. You can only have 1 of, some cards you can only have 2 of, and some cards are just banned altogether from competitive play. Now, that's your main deck and your side deck. Now, there's something else called the extra deck as well. And the extra deck is a completely different thing to your main deck, whereas your main deck is where you actually draw your cards from your deck for your hand. The extra deck is an extra set of cards that is actually on the other side of the field, face down. And these are monsters with different summoning conditions, right? We will cover each of these summoning conditions in detail in future, but the extra deck contains only monsters. No spells, no traps. Only monsters. And there are only 4 types of monsters that your extra deck can actually contain. Well, 5, but the 5th one are pendulum monsters, and we're not going to be talking about those today. So there are only really 4 types of monsters that start off in your extra deck. These are fusion monsters, which are a combination of 2 or more specific monsters, or more generic monsters depending on the fusion monster, but usually requiring a fusion spell. Then we have synchro monsters, where you actually match up a tuner and a non-tuner monster, and with the levels match up, you get a synchro monster. Then Xyz monsters, by using monsters with the same levels, you can make an Xyz monster. And last but not least, link monsters, where you link off monsters of certain attributes, types, and numbers to be able to summon out more powerful monsters. Now, I know this is all going to sound confusing because we haven't covered in depth what each of these things actually mean, what a fusion monster, synchro, tuner, Xyz, and link monster is, but trust me, we will get to that in future. The point is, the extra deck contains cards that you cannot have in your main deck. You can't put a fusion monster in your main deck. You can't put a synchro monster in your main deck, or an Xyz monster, or a link monster, right? Like I said, pendulum monsters are special, but we will get to that when we get to the episode about pendulums. In summary, what do you need to play Yu-Gi-Oh? You need a deck of at least 40 cards. Monsters, spells, and traps in varying amounts. Each person plays differently. Then, if you want to do really well, you'll have a side deck of up to 15 cards to bolster your strategies and to swap in cards in between games. And you'll have an extra deck of up to 15 cards as well, containing cards that you can't play in your main deck, but that will bolster your deck's strength and your ability to combo off and get stronger turns going. And that's exactly it. That's what you need to play Yu-Gi-Oh! If you found the video useful and you're looking forward to more Yu-Gi-Oh! For beginners tips, make sure to leave a like, leave a comment telling me what things about Yu-Gi-Oh! Are confusing to you and what you'd like to see me cover in the future, and make sure you subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! For beginners tips, pack openings, and just awesome Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. Thanks everyone, see you next time.